In this section we start to build out the RAG application and AI agents. The first application will be a cool RAG application. So we will train an LLM with the data that we want to have. And we want to do this completely automatical. Our automation will look something like this. We have a folder in Google Drive. In this Google Drive folder we can simply upload data. This data will get uploaded automatically into a vector database from Pinecone. And then another workflow will have access to this vector database, so you can simply chat with these documents. This is relatively practical, because you can simply upload new data all the time into your Google Drive. It will be added automatically and you have a RAG application that you can update in no time whatsoever. This is also a RAG application that you could eventually sell to people, but more on that later. After this RAG application, we want to combine the RAG technology with email automation. We want to upload a lot of email addresses into a vector database, and then we want to have an email automation. So if I simply tell this automation, send an email to Dave and invite him to my birthday party, this automation will search the vector database, give me the right email address, will write an email and can send this email completely automatical. In this automation you will also learn how you can trigger sub workflows with webhooks. So this is cool. And then I want to show you the fastest email automation that you can create. This will be really easy. Our next application is able to filter our emails from our inbox. So as soon as we get emails, they get filtered, and if the emails have a specific content, our application will automatically answer to these emails. I just make an example for my YouTube channel. Every time that I get a sponsor deal, this application will answer to these deals, and if it's not a sponsor deal, it will not answer. And I also want to show you how you can summarize your whole inbox every day at 7 AM. This will be easy, this will be cool, this can save you a lot of time so that you do not have to read all your emails all day long. In this video we will create a RAG chatbot, and this RAG chatbot will be relatively cool, because we can simply upload files into our Google Drive and the chatbot will update its knowledge. This is of course really practical. This is somehow similar to a GPT, but the knowledge will get updated automatically. Second, you can also make a link, so make it public and share it with other people. And lastly, you can also eventually make similar chatbots and embed them into websites, for example, for customer support. So basically, this is like a blueprint on how to make RAG chatbots. In this video, we will start with the first part. We will create the knowledge of our RAG chatbot. For this example, we assume that we like to read quarterly earning reports from companies. So we can simply upload a file in our Google Drive and then ask questions. This is of course practical. And in this first video, we will simply create the knowledge of our chatbot. We will simply create another workflow, so we press plus. I am on my local host right now. And now we need to include a node. And I told you that we want to use Google Drive. So we press plus and we search of course for Google Drive as the trigger node. So we use Google Drive. On changes involving a specific folder, this thing is now included, but let's just wait for a minute. We need to give this a name. Let's just say load data from Drive, for example. And let's just make it a bit bigger to Pinecone, because Pinecone will be later our database. And what we want to do right now is of course to go into our Google Drive, because we have to make a folder. What I want to do first is of course to make a folder into my Google Drive. It's called Tesla Earnings, and here are the Q3 earnings of Tesla. If you go for example onto the investor relations from Tesla, you see that the Q3 earnings are of course out. Also the Q4 earnings are out, but I want to show you later how we can update this knowledge base. That's why I want to download the Q4 later and make these updates. Right now Q3 is included, and that's right now at this minute every single thing that we need. When I open up this PDF, you see that in this PDF is a lot of data. I have to tell you right now at this minute, this data is not perfectly structured for an LLM. An LLM works a lot better with Markdown, but for now, for the sake of this tutorial, we simply leave it as it is. I want to show you later how we can create these things in Markdown and have even better outputs. So this is just the first tutorial. We want to make it as easy as possible. As soon as this is included, we come back to n8n and we press of course on our Google Drive trigger node. I have already connected my Google Drive account, but because I see all the time problems here. We do this step by step. We press create new credentials if you do not have any credentials. You go on to the documentation. This is always the same thing with this Google Cloud Console. So you can simply press on it, you go on console, then of course you make a new project. You can simply press in this button here, then new project. Let's just give it a name, for example, n8n drive test. Then we press create, of course. As soon as this thing is created, in this upper right corner, you can press on it and you can use this thing. So use project. Of course, we press here once again. We go on APIs and services. We go on library. In the library, we need to search for the thing that you need. So for example, Google Drive. And we send this out. You need, of course, the Google Drive API. We need to activate this API and wait for a minute until this is active. As soon as this is active, we press, of course, on the OAuth consent screen. First steps. We give it a name, n8n drive. We give our email, we go on. Extern, we go on. Our email, once again, we go on, we accept, and we go on. I just want to show this once again because I see here problems all the time. Now we will make our OAuth client by pressing on this button. It is of course a web application. Web client 1 is here okay. And once again we need our redirect URL. We press on it. We come back into n8n, copy this line. We include it here. We can scroll down and we press create. After this thing is created, we press on test group. Because here on test group, we need to use a test user. So we press on add user and we give our mail here. This is a point where I see problems from time to time. So we include our mail and we connect this thing. As soon as this is connected, it should work. So we go on clients, we press here, and now we have everything that we need. The client ID, of course, we copy this. We come back into n8n, throw in the client ID. Then the client secret key, we copy these, come back into n8n, throw it down here, and now we sign in with Google. We use our profile, we go on, we accept everything, and go on. Now this thing will be green, hopefully once again. We can close this down, we can also close this down, and now you see that this thing is connected, and here we have the mode we want to use every single minute. So every minute this thing will search in our Google Drive folder if new things get included. And if something new gets included, we will get updates immediately. We want to trigger these, of course, changes involving a specific folder. So as soon as we get a change in our folder, this thing will get triggered every single minute. Then we need to choose from our list. If we come back here, go back, you see Tesla earnings is the name here. So we simply search from the list for Tesla earnings. You can simply type it in here if you have a lot of folders. Tesla earnings, so we use this. And then watch for, you can press on it. We use, of course, file created, because I want to upload files all the time. And as soon as something new gets uploaded, we simply want to fetch this event. Because I already have an event, I simply press fetch test event, and then we see if this thing comes through. So we see we have, of course, some data here. And if you scroll down, you see that everything should work. You also find the original file name, and it's of course Tesla Q3. Exactly this file. So the fetching was correct. We can close this down. The next thing that I like to do from time to time is to press save. And as soon as we have fetched our test event here, we press plus. We use once again Google Drive, because we need to download this thing. So we press on Google Drive, download file, and we include this. And here is everything set right. Of course, it's our Google Drive account, the resource is a file. We want to download this file. And now this is important. Download, you do not want to download from lists. So you do not want to download every time the same file. You need to find your file right here. And if you scroll down, you will find the file ID. So if you scroll down under spaces, you find the ID of this file. So the name is of course TSLA, and the ID is this right here, and you can throw in the ID right here, and then this thing will simply get downloaded every time as soon as we upload a new file, and this will be automatically. If you press test step, you will become, of course, the data, or you will download the data from this file. So there we have it. If we press view, it's binary right now. Let's just download it so that we can see it. Yes, it's the same report. So this worked, of course. And like I said, these pictures, they are of course not perfect for our RAG application. This is just so that we can make it simple for our first RAG chatbot. Later I will show you how you can improve this. So we have downloaded our file, and what we want to do right now is, of course, to upload these files into a vector database. And for the vector database, I like Pinecone for these. So you can press plus and then we search some nodes, but before we do that, we simply go on Google, we search for Pinecone, then you press on this first link. You need to log in or sign up. If you do not have an account, just simply sign up. If you have an account, we simply log in this account. I have already an account. You can work with this thing completely for free. As soon as you are here, this thing will be most likely empty for you, and you can simply press create index. Then we will give it a name. Let's just say n8n course DSLA. Let's just do it this way. Then you need the dimensions. And for the dimension, we simply use the text embeddings free small. You can simply press on these and the dimensions will be automatically. It's important that you remember what you choose here. The text embeddings free small from OpenAI are perfect, simply use them. And then you can scroll down and press create index. As soon as this index is created, let's just wait for a minute, then we can connect these things. The next step is, of course, to press on API keys, create a key, n8n course, create key. Then you need to copy this key. We come back into n8n, and here, of course, we search for Pinecone. So if you type in vector store, you will find a lot of different vector stores. One of the easiest is also the in-memory vector store. You can also use this, like you can play with these things a little bit, but I do really like Pinecone vector store. If you press on these, we use, of course, add documents to vector store. And here, of course, you need to connect your account. Because I have already accounts, we will create a new one. So simply create new credentials. And here you throw in the credentials from the API key that we have created. Then you press save. The credentials will be connected successfully, hopefully. And then you are connected with Pinecone. The operation mode is, of course, insert documents. This is important. And then the Pinecone index from list, you can also search for a Pinecone index. So from the Pinecone index, you simply press on it, and we use n8n course DSLA, so we simply use this. And now what I like to do is to give a namespace to Pinecone. You can also give namespaces here directly into Pinecone on your databases, but I like to do it in n8n because it makes it a little bit easier and simpler. You can press on this thing, you can simply press Pinecone namespaces, and I call this namespace simply DSLA. n8n. This thing is now set. You can close this down, but first you need here, of course, a lot of stuff. Let's just connect these two things. Then we need the embeddings models, so we press plus. I like to use the embeddings from OpenAI. You already know this. You need to connect, of course, with an OpenAI account. Of course, you have already some credentials, just use some credentials that we have made in this course. And here it's important that you use the same model that you have used in Pinecone. In Pinecone, we used the text embeddings free small, and that's what you need to use right here. Then this thing is connected, so it works. Then the next thing is, of course, that you need here this document, so you press plus. I like to use the default data loader, so you simply press on the default data loader. And here you need to choose, of course, the right data. The type of this data is, of course, not JSON. So you press on this. This is binary data because we use a PDF in this example. The mode is load all input data. You can also load specific data if you do not want to load specific stuff. And the data format is, in our case, it would be a PDF. But you can also just use automatically detect by MIME type. If it's, let's just say that you want to upload sometimes text files or whatever, you can also choose this right here. And you close this down, and this thing is still red because you need to have a text splitter. You simply press on this text splitter, and what I like to use is the recursive character text splitter. Splits texts into chunks by character recursively, recommended for most use cases. More on text splitter for these embeddings later, we just want to do it really simple and really easy. Here we always have chunk size and chunk overlap. For a PDF in this size, I like to use, like roughly, let's just say 800 chunks, and with an overlap of, I think 50 is fine here. You can also go up to 900. If you work with this default data, this will also eventually work. More on chunk size and chunk overlap later. We want to do this a little bit faster, so just use this for a normal PDF. And if your document is a lot smaller, you can use, of course, smaller chunk size and smaller chunk overlap. Now this thing is also here connected. So this thing should be perfect right now. If you come back, for example, into Pinecone. Here in Pinecone we go on our database, and you see in this database is of course right now at least empty. If we come back into n8n and we press test workflow, we should load this data into our Pinecone vector database. So you see this thing gets loaded in right now, and after this thing is done, hopefully we get all of the stuff in our Pinecone vector database. So you see 94 items get added. And if we come back into Pinecone, right now it's empty. Let's just wait a minute. This thing should come through. I just simply can reload this page. And there we have it. So you see it. We have right now 49 documents in this database, and they are all splitted and embedded in our vector database. If you want to organize this even better, you can come back into n8n, and by your data loader you can press on it, and you can also use metadata. So you can press on options, you press on metadata, you can use apply property, you give a name, let's just say DSLA. Of course it's Q3, and then the value, you can find the value here. If you go on schema, you can find on the left side the ID. And under the ID is of course the name, so you can simply throw this thing here. And of course this only works if you go on mapping and then schema. Under the ID is the name, and we can simply throw this value in here. And this is how we can include metadata. So until now we do not have metadata. This is of course not perfect. If you go into Pinecone, of course we can delete all of this data and re-upload it so that we have metadata in our files. This is not really necessary, but this can help to organize your vector database a little bit better. So here you see we do not have any metadata, but if you go on namespaces, we can simply delete all of this namespace by pressing on these 3 dots, delete. Here you need to type in DSLA n8n for our example, delete namespace. Now this thing is gone. This thing will be completely empty as soon as all of this is deleted. So you see 0 records. And if you come back once again into n8n and you test your workflow once again, we will embed this data once again, but this time we also apply metadata. And as soon as metadata is applied, we are a little bit better organized. We come back into Pinecone, want to reload it. Now we have, of course, once again our namespace, and if we come back to browser, you see, if you scroll down, that we have right now the metadata with the name and also the exact name of the file, and we are a little bit more organized. So 49 documents, all with metadata included, thanks to our workflow from n8n. And our goal is right now, of course, that we can simply upload stuff into our Google Drive, and our Pinecone vector database will update this stuff automatically. In order to do that, so let's just see, we have 49 documents included right now at this minute, and if we come back into n8n, we need to make this thing here from inactive to active, and as soon as this thing is active, this thing will search every single minute if in my Google Drive account comes new data. And the new data that I want to have is of course Q4, so I can simply download Q4. I want to download it here on my desktop. The next thing that I want to do is to go into my Google Drive, and here in this Google Drive folder I simply throw the Q4 from Tesla, and as soon as this thing is updated or uploaded, my n8n workflow will simply try to search for these updates all the time, and then will make updates automatically. If we come here into executions, let's just see, I think in a minute or so a new execution will come through, and everything will get included in our Pinecone vector database completely automatically. Here you see that this thing is right now running, so it seems to work. And right now we see that we had a success. So this thing was perfect. Let's just come back into Pinecone, and in Pinecone we have right now 112 documents. So every time as soon as I upload something here, my workflow will simply get triggered automatically, but just if we have this active. This is important. If you do not have this active, you need to press test workflow all the time. As soon as this is active, our trigger node will get executed every minute and see if new stuff gets included here, and if new stuff gets included, we will simply automatically update our Pinecone vector database. And that's basically our automation, the first part of the automation. This is our vector database, and it was relatively easy. We started with a Google Drive trigger. It searches every single minute for updates into our Google Drive folder. Then the thing gets downloaded as binary file and uploaded into a Pinecone vector database. And in the next video we will connect this Pinecone vector database to a RAG chatbot so that the RAG chatbot can simply search the database and give us information about Tesla earnings all the time. So see you in the next video. In the last video we have created our vector database. We have simply embedded all the documents in our vector database, and every time as soon as we upload something into Google Drive, they get embedded automatically. In this video we will create a RAG chatbot that will use this vector database so that we can ask our questions. But first things first, of course, these vector databases, they cannot get like enormously big. Sooner or later you need to update your workspace, so you can simply delete old stuff from the vector database in Pinecone. So please don't throw here like a gazillion files in it. And also, PDFs with pictures are not perfect. Later, more on that of course. So the first thing is of course that you need to set this to active, so make this workflow active. Only then you will get your automatic updates as soon as you insert here new documents. Then we simply press on overview once again and we create a new workflow. We simply press plus, and what I like to use right here is the AI agent node. So we simply throw in an AI agent. This AI agent has right now, of course, our chat message, and we can also press here to chat with these. And with this AI agent we need to do some things, of course. First things first, we always need a chat model. I like to use the OpenAI models. We simply connect our credentials, and I like to use GPT-4 The mini model is maybe a little bit too weak for these. So let's just use GPT-4o. And I think this will work for us. The next thing is that we need a system prompt. So we simply press on this agent, then we need to use a system prompt. This agent will also use, of course, some tools, and the tools are, of course, the vector database, so we can browse this vector database later. But let's just start with the prompt. The tools agent is the write agent. Connected chat trigger node is, of course, the source prompt. Every time as soon as we write something in this tool, it will work. We don't use a specific output, but what we need is this right here. We press on it and we want to have a system message. I like to go on expressions and make this big. And then I simply tell this agent how it should behave, of course. And I like to use like a simple one, maybe something like this. Let me include this prompt and I will show you. My system prompt looks something like this, and don't worry, I want to show you later exactly how we can write specifically really nailed down system prompts, but for now it's easy. You are an AI assistant specialized in analyzing Tesla's quarterly financial reports. This is basically the role prompting, so we simply give a small role here. And like I said, I will give you also a GPT later how you can write perfect system prompts yourself. Your primary task is to answer a question accurately and precisely using the vector database, which contains relevant documents, Q3 and Q4 reports. Only provide information that you receive from the documents or verified expert knowledge. If something is not included in the database or unclear, clearly state that you do not have sufficient information. Structure of your responses: concise and to the point, specific numbers and facts when available, clearly indicate which quarterly report, so Q3 or Q4, the information comes from. Objective: provide users with reliable and quick insights into Tesla's quarterly financial without unnecessary details. This is basically a good system prompt, so we will simply work with these. So we can close this down, and here we are back once again. The next tool that I like to include is the memory. And here we simply press plus and we use a window buffer memory. This window buffer memory is really practical because this thing will simply remember what we tell the AI agent. It will remember in this specific example for 10 messages what we talked about previously. I want to show you how this thing works without the Windows buffer memory and then with the Windows buffer memory. So let's just delete this so that I can show you. First, I want to give this a name. Let's just say RegBot Tesla. We press save. Now we press chat. Hey, my name is Arnie. Then we wait for the response. And this thing says to me, hello Arnie, how can I assist you today? And if I ask something like this right now, what is my name? This thing tells us that it does not know my name, because it is dumb, it has no memory. Now I want to show you how you can include this memory. You simply use this Windows buffer memory, and here we type in 10, so it knows for 10 messages what we talked about previously. Let's just test this out right now. We simply press chat once again, we clear this chat, reset. Hey, my name is Arnie. Then we wait for the response. Hey Arnie, how can I assist you today? What is my name? And then this thing tells me that my name is Arnie because it looks into this previous conversation. So please include this memory if this is something that is cool for you. I think it's always nice to have. Then the next thing that we absolutely need is of course tools, because we need our vector database so that the agent can browse this vector database. If we ask right now something for like Q4 of Tesla, of course it has no specific information. Like what was revenue of automotive sales in Q4, for example. This thing will either hallucinate or tells that it has no information. It tells us that it does not have information because of our system prompt, but right now we need to give it information, of course. So we need to insert our vector database, and then this thing will be a lot cooler. We press plus and we need to include the right tools. And what I like to do is to search for a vector tool, and most of the time the thing that I like the most is to use the vector store question answer tool, because we ask of course some questions and we want to have some answers. We include this tool, then we have data name, the description, and here is the limit. Before we do that, I want to close this down because we have to include of course the vector store and also the models. So we press plus. And what we want to include right now is of course the pinecone vector store. We need to include this. And right now it's of course important that you use the right thing here. You need your API key from pinecone. Most likely it's automatically included from the previous conversation. Then the operation mode, receive documents as vector stored of chain or tools. And here you see that you have a lot of options, but we want to receive information, of course, and then we need our pinecone index. So we press on these and we want to have the pinecone index that we have created previously. So it was n8n course TSLA. And if you do not remember your pinecone index, just simply go into your pinecone account, go into namespaces, and see for yourself how this index is named. So this thing should work. We can close this down, and now we need even more stuff. We need the embeddings models. We press plus, of course we use once again OpenAI, and we need our OpenAI API account, and also here I like to use the same embeddings model, so the text embedding 3 small model, the same model that we have already used. So right now we have this right here, and the last thing that we need to include is this right here. We press plus. We need to have of course once again an LLM model, so I like to use once again the OpenAI models, and here we should also use the same model as previously. It was of course GPT for Omni. You can also try with Mini here, and you need to connect your API credentials. Then we are connected, and this thing is of course right now only red because we do not have included of course the stuff from this node. So we can press on it and now we can give this information. We need to give this a name. Let's just say TSLA_Q. I also want to copy these and give this name up here so that we have a little bit more structured stuff here. And then the data description, this is especially important. Here we need to tell this tool when it should be called. Returns documents related to Tesla Q3 and Q4, the financials, outlook, margins, and everything important from the earnings report. You can also delete here these quarters if you include other quarters like in the future, but right now I think this is perfectly fine. So we have our reg chatbot and I think it's ready, so we press save. You can also make this from inactive to active. Before we can test this thing out, we can also do something really cool. We can press on this vector data store once again and we add options. And what I like to do is to use also here the Pinecone namespace. And here we insert the namespace that we have in Pinecone. So we go into Pinecone, we go into namespaces, and you see TSLA n8n. We copy these and we throw it also back here into n8n. This makes sure that our application is a little bit better with especially like these financials, because this is some of the hardest stuff that we do right here. It would be of course better if we would have these documents in Markdown and so on. I will show you later how to do this, but I think for the sake of this tutorial this will be fine. Let's just see if this thing is accurate or not. So let's just save this, and now I want to test this workflow out. We simply press chat, we can make this a little bit bigger, and now we can ask something that is related to Tesla. So for example, what was total revenue in Q3, for example, and we send this out. And now hopefully our vector store gets triggered. Yes, it gets triggered, and we also get an answer back. Tesla's total revenue in Q3 was 25.2 billion. And I also have to tell this chatbot that we talk about Tesla because it already knows this because of the system prompt. So let's just check if this is right. 25.2 billion in total revenue in Q3. So we go of course into Q3. We can scroll down. Automotive revenue, total revenue of and Q3 of 2024 was 25.182. So it's basically 25.2 billion. This chatbot was relatively accurate. Maybe we can also tell the chatbot in the system prompt that it should give the exact numbers and not round these numbers. But you absolutely see that this thing was correct. Let's make another test. What was operating cash flow in Q4 of 2024? And send this out. Vector store got searched. And this thing tells us in Q4, operating cash flow was 4.8 billion. So yes, this is here a million, but this should be 4.8 billion in operating cash flow. Let's just see if this is correct. Let's just go to the highlight summary here. We find it fast. Operating cash flow of 14.9 billion in 2024 and 4.8 billion in Q4. That's basically what this thing tells us, and this thing is also more accurate here because most likely in the financials it is broken down even more. So perfectly executed by our RAG chatbot. Let's just clear this and ask one last question. What was total automotive revenue in, let's just say, Q4 of 2024? And it tells me 19.798 billion, or if you want to call it in million, this right here. So Q4 once again, total automotive revenues, Q4 19.798, 19.798. So congratulations, you have a RAG application that works. And I have to tell you, it is totally possible that this does not work perfectly all the time. The best thing that you can do is, of course, to don't upload too much files here, and maybe also prepare your files a little bit. Markdown would make the most sense. This is like messy data. You see that it also works with this data here, but later, of course, I want to show you how we can improve this data just a tiny bit so that our RAG application is even more precise. This would be really, really nice. And also, like, don't upload a gazillion files here and expect that all of it works, because also the context limit here is somehow not infinite. And if you go into your vector store in your namespaces or in your browser, you can always see here that you have here something from Q3, Q4 and so on, and you can always update these. You can delete specific namespaces and so on, and if you think the whole namespace is like no longer active, you can simply delete the whole namespace, throw something new in here in your Google Drive, and you will get the updates automatically all day long. And this AI agent node is of course gigantic. You can include new tools. You could also include right now, for example, the Gmail tool. Maybe you do want to have like a mail send it to you every single time that something new comes around the corner here with this quarterly results and so on. You can also include, like, let's just make it easy, a calculator. If you use, for example, a calculator tool, you can do a little bit of math with this thing. Yeah, we need to connect this, of course. So let's just connect it to these tools here. So we can also use this calculator. So if you ask right now a hard question like what is 99 times 99 times 5, and if you send this out, most likely the calculator will get triggered, and then you have, of course, the right thing here. The calculator will do the math so that you are not dependent on the math of an LLM, because the LLM is not that great in math. You can make these AI agents gigantic, but right now you have a simple RAG application. And right now you can also use this thing, of course, for other people. Everything that you have to do is to send this from inactive to active, so it has to be active. And right now you can press on this chat model. You can press here, make chat publicly available. You can press on it, and then right now you see here that this is of course our local host, so this thing is not hosted. Other people cannot access it. I want to show you later how you can host this so that other people can also access this. As soon as you copy this, you can come into your browser, you can throw it in and send it out, and then you are also here in your RAG application and you can ask questions about Tesla. Hey, my name is Arnie. I can send this out. This thing will talk back to me. So do you want to know something from Tesla's quarterly results and so on? Like, no, what is my name? We can ask what's our name, because we have, of course, also everything included, just like we have here. So this is right now a standalone application, and you can also integrate this into websites, for example. You can also make this a little bit nicer, but more on this thing later, because right now you have your first RAG application. So congratulations, right now you have your first application working. You have a RAG chatbot. You can simply upload data in your Google Drive folder. Your vector database in Pinecone will get updated automatically every time you upload new files. Because you have metadata, it's easy to organize your vector database, to delete old stuff and so on. But please, don't overdo it. If you do this with these financial results of companies, just upload one and test it if it works or not. Maybe later we need to prepare our data a little bit better. We need to make this into Markdown and so on, but we will do this step by step. This is your first RAG application. Congratulations, right now it works. And in the next video I want to show you how we can make an email automation where we also use a vector database. So we can make these things really big, and I'll see you of course in the next video. And as soon as we talk about selling these RAG applications, we will make it perfect. We need to prepare our data a little bit more. And I also want to show you how you can host these RAG applications. In this video, we will make a gigantic email automation. We want to make 3 different workflows. And right now I want to show you what we are building. We built a mail agent that has OpenAI as the chat model, a vector database in Pinecone where some email addresses are stored, and then also a send mail tool in order to send our mail. In order to upsert stuff to our vector database, we will use this workflow. This is just to upsert our data into Pinecone. And we do another technique than in the previous video. And lastly, we want to have this workflow, and this workflow will get triggered by our other workflow. So you will basically have 3 different workflows and they will work in conjunction to each other. In this video, you will learn how you can connect 3 different workflows. It will be Pinecone to upsert our data, our RAG application in order to use these email addresses and send mails, and also the third workflow that will get triggered by our other workflow. So you can really learn a lot in this video. We start with the Pinecone vector database. So we rename this, for example, mails to Pinecone. Then we press plus, of course. What I like to do in this video is to do it completely different than in the other video so that you can see that we have a lot of options. I like to use the manual trigger node, but of course you can also do this completely automatical, just like in the previous video with, for example, Google Drive. Every time that you upload something new into Google Drive, you can insert new email addresses in your vector store. To be honest, this would be most likely also the better workflow, but I want to show you that you have a lot of options here. After you have your manual trigger node, you can always press test workflow like this works, come on. Then we press plus, and now I want to include something. And I like to use Google Docs this time. And we want to have get a document. What we need to do right now is, of course, to connect our Google Docs account. You have most likely until now no Google Docs account, so we do this once again step by step. So you press on these and you do it as always. You can open documentation, you go on Google Cloud, you press on the console, Excuse me that I show this every time, but here are the biggest confusions. We press here, new project, n8n docs, create. We use this project, we press on these dots here, APIs and services, library, Google Docs. We want to have the Google Docs API, we activate it. As soon as this is active, we go on OAuth consent screen, create new for first steps, n8n docs, our mail, we go on, extern, we go on. Once again, our mail, we go on, we accept, go on, and create. Create OAuth client, web application, web client 1 is okay. Once again, our uDirect URL, we press on it, we come back into n8n, copy these, we throw it in here, and we create. And lastly, of course, we go to our Zielgruppe. This is German, of course, so just press on this button. We use some test users, we give our mail, and we connect. Lastly, we press on clients once again. We press here, and of course, we get our API key and the client ID. So we copy the client ID, throw it into n8n, and then the client secret or the API key, however you want to call this, and we throw it down here. Connect with Google or sign in with Google. We use our Google account, we go on, accept all, we go on, and green once again, and green is always good. So right now Google Docs is connected, and I want to show you why I want to connect Google Docs. Because in Google Docs I have made up this document here. This is just an example. I have called it Arnie test, and here I have names and email addresses. So the name is Arnie test for the first mail. This is the only mail that exists here, and we want to use this for test purpose. Then I have Max Müller and Anna Schmidt and something else like, don't worry about privacy, these mails do not exist. We go back. So this is simply a Google Doc, and then we come back, of course, into n8n. We want to have, of course, a document. We want the operation is, of course, get, and then we want to have the doc ID or the doc URL. So we simply open up this doc. Now we can connect, of course, this doc. Now we can copy these. We come back into n8n. We throw this in. This should work. It's simplified, and now we press test step, and we should theoretically load in our data. If we press on JSON, you see that we have Arnie test and here the mail. We have Max Müller and here the mail, and so on. We have also the schema, so you see our data comes through correctly. This works. And I want to insert this data into a vector store from Pinecone. So just like we did previously, we search for Pinecone, so Pinecone vector store, retrieve documents for AI agent as tools, works for us here. But maybe you do not have a Pinecone key, so we do this once again. So create new credentials, we go on Pinecone, we log in, create index, we call it n8n docs, we use the small embeddings from OpenAI, create index, index is created, we go on API keys, create API key, n8n docs, create key, we copy the key, come back into n8n, throw the API key in here, but press save, and green is always good. Operation mode, we have here the false operation mode. I could also use just receive documents previously, but right now we use it simply here. So insert documents. Now we need a list, of course, we can press on it. It's n8n docs, and you know it works better if we give a Pinecone namespace. So let's just use, for example, docs mail. So this thing is set up. Right now we need, of course, embeddings. I like to use the OpenAI embeddings. And of course we use our OpenAI API key here. Then we press plus once again, because we want to have the default data loader. Type of data, yeah, it's not really JSON. Let's just use binary. Load all input data. And data format automatically detect. Yes, this is fine for us. Also JSON would work in this example, but let's just use binary, come on. So we can close this. Of course, we need a text splitter, the recursive character text splitter. The chunk size can be small because we have only the names with the email address. So let's just say 300. Overlap, I don't think that we need an overlap. Let's just use 30 for this example. So right now we are, I think, set. Yeah, we can also go down here. Come on, let's just use 200. With an overlap of, let's just say 20. This is completely fine here. We do not need a lot of big text here. So this should work right now. On these text splitters, one small note. The higher the chunk size, the higher the token count as soon as you ask questions to your applications. If you want to have it even cheaper, you can go down, for example, to 110. For these emails, it's absolutely fine, and it will be also really precise. So let's just make it small and let it cheap. Now we save this workflow, and we can also test this workflow. We want to assert, okay, this thing is not connected, so let's just connect this workflow, excuse me. Now we can save this once again and test the workflow once again. We have a small problem. The text splitter seems not to work. So let's just use here JSON as format, and then we test this workflow once again. Okay, now it seems to work. So everything is working fine, so please use JSON. I thought maybe binary was also fine. Now we can come back into Pinecone. We are in our, let's just see, database, n8n docs. Let's just wait until this thing comes through. It should connect right here, you see it blinking. Right now we have 4 documents, so our email addresses should be in the right place right now. So basically our first step is done. So we can save this as always, and we come back into overview, create new workflow, and now we go on. The next workflow, let's just call this workflow, for example, mail agent Pinecone. And of course we save it. Then we press plus. What I like to do here is to use an AI agent node. So we simply press on AI agent. And now this thing is of course included. Then we need a chat model, so we press plus. I like to do it simple. We always use just simply these OpenAI models because they work. Like, let's be honest, they are the best. At least for these agents, at least right now. I'm sure this can change over time. And I like to use the normal GPT for Omni. So we press on Omni, we have connected our OpenAI credentials, of course. And what we include right now is, of course, Pinecone. And we want to have our vector store tool. So we use the vector store tool. We give it a name. Let's just say mails. Also here, I like to call this tool mails, or let's just say vector store mails. We copy these. Also here, vector store mails, or maybe we need to do it this way. Then the description, this is of course important. Use this tool to get email information. You find all relevant mail addresses. I think this is fine. We rename it, and this thing is right now set. Then of course we need to press plus because we want to have our vector store. So we use the Pinecone vector store, of course. We connect, of course, also our API key. Retrieve documents is of course fine. We press on it because we want to have our Pinecone index. And right now it's of course n8n docs, because this was our Google document from previous. And in our Pinecone vector database, you see that it's docs mail. So we can come back, we press on it, Pinecone namespace. And in this Pinecone namespace, we need to give, of course, the Pinecone namespace. And if you do not remember it, just simply come back to Pinecone and see for yourself. The namespace is, of course, here on namespaces on n8n docs. This thing down here, we need to copy these. We come back into n8n and we throw in the name of the namespace. And now this thing should be connected. So we have the Pinecone vector store. Then the next thing is, of course, also the embedding models. We simply use this from OpenAI, it's connected, and this is completely fine. And the next thing is, of course, that we also need here a model. Let's just say OpenAI once again with the GPT-4 Omni model. I think this will work great. So this thing is right now connected. We have access to our email addresses. So let's just make here a quick test. In the meantime, I just want to press save. We go on chat. I go into my Google Docs and I ask for the email address of Arnie Test. What is the mail of Arnie Test? Let's just see if this is working or not. I sent this out. My vector store got triggered. And I am relatively confident that we get this mail back. So this is the mail right here. And if you see right here, this is of course the mail. Let's just make another example. Let's just ask for the mail of Lisa Hoffman. We come back and we ask, what is the mail of? We insert this name and then we hopefully also get our email address back from Lisa Hoffman, lisa.hoffman@example.com. And it's of course lisa.hoffman@example.com. So you see this RAG application is working perfectly. And now we go on with the next tool, and the next tool is here special, because here we want to have call n8n workflow tool. We use this thing, we give a name, let's just say send mail, we copy these, I also want to call this thing here send mail, use this tool to send mails, and it's done. And right now we need to do something special. This send mail tool, we want to trigger another workflow with the send mail tool. So this will be important right now. Of course, later I also want to show you the faster way, but right now I want to show you how we can trigger a separate tool, because we can also use new workflows and call new workflows with this tool. So we press save, we come on overview, create new workflow, we press plus, and here we use this right now. When executed by another workflow. This is a great note. And here we use accept all data. This is really important. So please don't forget this. Accept all data. You can also set mock data here if you just want to test this out, but I like to test it in another way. I just like to use here, like no mock data, we can unpin it and press accept all data. And then we come, for example, in the overview back. Now let's just give this a name. Let's just say send mails pinecone. We press save. Once again, we come in overview. We come back to our mail agent. And right now we press once again on send mail. And now we need to choose from our list. And my workflow should be called send mails pinecone. So it's this thing right here. And right now we should be connected. So what I want to do right now is the following. I press save, I press on chat, send a mail to Arnie test, tell him that I like his course. I sent this out. Right now we will call the vector store for our email address, and then we trigger the send mail tool if everything works correct. Yeah, right now it does not seem to work correct. Everything worked except the send mail tool. And that's why we need to have, of course, the system message. We press on expression. I just don't want to cut this out so that you see that all of this is an iterating process. So right now we need to make the system prompt, and the system prompt should make sense, of course, for our LLM. So right now I do think my system prompt is okay. Role, you are an intelligent email agent that automatically sends personalized emails to recipients. Your task is to generate and send clear, professional and accurate emails based on the provided names, email addresses and desired content. Rules and behavior. You have two tools and need to use them correctly. The vector store mails, use this tool to get email addresses. The send mails, use this tool to send mails. Then the email format, this email is included and so on. So we simply give an example, and we also tell this thing that it should end with Arnie. Then the dynamic personalization, so the thing where there is name included, of course we include the right name. Then overview and optimization, avoid unnecessary repetitions and so on. If the message is too long, summarize it. Then the email types, and then a small example how such a mail should look like, for example. So now let's just test this out. Send a mail to Arnie test, tell him that I like his course, and use the send mail to send your info. We can also delete this. Let's just make it a little bit more concise and send this out. We use the vector store to get our mails. Our mail is triggered and the send mail tool is also triggered. I've sent the email to Arnie letting him know how much you like his course. And what we need to do right now is, of course, to come back. Then we go to our send mails pinecone. Here we have, of course, right now nothing that is working with our new data. But if we come on execution, we see that an execution come through. You can simply press on it and see that all of this data came through. So this was perfect, of course, and we can absolutely work with this data. So right now we need to build out this workflow in order that we can work with this thing. So let's just go on with this thing, and as soon as this thing is set up, we can send our mails from our agent. One of the first things that I like to do is to set mock data, so that we can trigger this workflow later by simply pressing on test workflow. So we come on executions. some data come through, we can press on this data, we press on JSON, and here we have the whole data, the whole query that we can use in order to test this thing out. So what we need to do right now is to simply copy all of this small little code here. Then we come back, we go to the editor, we press on this node, we press set mock data, we delete this old data, insert our new data, and right now we can simply press save, and we have mock data right now. We can simply use this mock data to test this workflow. So if you press test workflow, this data will get sent out so that we don't have to trigger this node every single time from our other workflow. This is simply for test purpose. But later, of course, our new query will come through, and you can also unpin this mock data as soon as your workflow is done. So let's just make it as simple as possible. When executed by another workflow, we press plus, and what I want to include is right now the advanced AI. And here we need to use the AI agent node. We can close this down, so we use the AI agent, we press plus here, we use the OpenAI model. Let's just use GPT-4o mini because this is strong enough. And now we want to include, of course, once again our send mail tool. So Gmail tool, description set automatically. Message, resource is of course message, the operation is send, and to who do you want to send this? What I like to do is of course to let the AI decide, so you can simply press on these. You can also use variables here, but I like to make it simple, so we simply use the AI. This object should also do the AI for us. HTML is fine, and the message can also do the AI for us. So we do not have to work with this query that comes here through, but you could eventually work with these. But I think this is like the simpler way. And the last thing that we need to add is of course a small little prompt. So let's just use a system message. You're a helpful assistant to send mails, for example. And the source of prompt is of course defined below, and the defined below is the query from the left side. And now this thing is included, and I think it should work. So we press save. Now I can press this workflow, and then this query will get passed to our AI agent and send hopefully a mail to me. So test workflow, I think the mail will get generated, was executed successfully. So it seems that we have sent this mail, of course, right now. It was sent to arnie@example.com. These are, of course, just the stupid examples. But I think all of it works fine. So let's just come back into the overview. So let's just save this and see what we did. First, we started, of course, with this workflow. This workflow simply loads up our email information into Pinecone. Then the second piece is of course the mail agent. The mail agent uses OpenAI to draft our messages, use Pinecone to get our mail information, use OpenAI to draft the mails, and to send the mails we use the send mail tool. And the send mail tool does basically the job. You can simply use here some mock data. You can, by the way, also unpin the mock data as soon as this is done, but make sure to accept all data. And then you can simply use this workflow. You can use this query here, and this query will get executed. And right now we need to test if this thing is working or not. So let's just come back to our mail agent. We simply use this chat model. Now let's just test this once again. Send a mail to Arnie test. Tell him that we drink a coffee tonight, and we send this out. So you see, agent gets triggered, Pinecone gets triggered, send mail tool gets triggered, everything seems to work. Then we come back into the send mails tool from Pinecone, and it seems that the last execution got through right now at this minute. Let's just make one little test. We come on chat, send a mail to Arnie test, tell him I love his course, and we send this out. We trigger Pinecone for our mail. We trigger the send mail tool to send it. Everything seems to work. So you see, we triggered this email address to send our mail, because of course it is in this database that Arnie test has this email. And so you see that everything is working. In this video we will create the simplest AI agent that will send mails for us. It will be enormously fast, enormously easy, and you can of course also just copy my workflow or also do this step by step, click by click with me. I would recommend it to do it click by click because this is really fast, really easy. So you simply press plus, and what I want to do right now is of course to start with an AI agent node because this will be the fastest node here. So this thing is connected, and the next thing is of course that we need to press plus, and we want to have a chat model, once again the OpenAI model. Let's just use GPT for Omni for better outputs. We connect our API account and basically this is done. Then I also want to have memory, so the Windows buffer memory, so that this thing knows for, let's just say, 10 chats what we are talking about. This thing is also included, and the next thing is of course a Gmail node. What I want to use right now is the Gmail tool. The Gmail account is of course connected, set automatically. The resources is message, the operation is sent. And to what thing or to who do I want to send this thing? What I like to do right now is of course either to do this with 2 curly brackets and use from AI and so on, use expression, and we can do this programmatically. But what I really love to do is to simply press on this thing right here, and then you can also see that this thing does this completely automatically for us. So we do not have to do anything. Also the subject will get decided from AI. The email type, let's just leave it as HTML, and the message we also want to decide this from AI. If you press on expression, decide from AI, all of this works. So this should in theory completely work for us. We have Windows buffer memory, we have our chat model, we have the Gmail node, and to trigger this workflow we have this chat model, so you can press on these and then you can simply send emails. The next thing or the last thing that we need to do is to use a system prompt. So as the prompt user, we have the chat input, of course, this is fine. But let's just use the system message. Here we go on expression, we make it big, and we simply give a really easy and simple to follow system prompt. This right here is my system prompt. You are a helpful and efficient email assistant with access to the Gmail send tool. Your role is to draft, refine, and send emails on behalf of the user. Follow the guidelines. Keep emails professional and well structured unless instructed otherwise. Ensure correct grammar, spelling and tone. Confirm details with the user before sending. Never send emails without explicit approval. So we can also make this even shorter. We can delete some things. You can make this however you want. What I also like to include is maybe something like this. Sign off every mail with Arnie. Your goal is to make email communication seamless and efficient. I made it even shorter with just these 3 points. The Gmail send tool, let's just copy these. We press on Gmail and we give this the name Gmail send tool so that it's a little bit more seamless. It's easier to use. And now we want to test this thing out here. So we press on chat, send a mail to this email and tell him we meet at 8 PM at the local bank. We can send this out. Our agent is working. The send mail tool gets triggered and boom, our mail gets sent out. I just want to come into my emails here and see if this is working or not. And here you see it. Meeting at 8 PM. Everything seems well structured. Hey Arnold, I hope this message finds you well. Just confirming our meeting tonight at 8 PM at the local bank. Looking forward to it. Best Arnie. This email was sent automatically. We do not like to have these. And maybe also the body. Yeah, we could structure the body a little bit better. So we come back. Now the first thing is that we press on this tool. We scroll down. Add options, append n8n attribution, and we do not like to have this. So basically this thing will get deleted. And the next thing that I like to do is the following. We go once again on the system prompt. And we tell him 1 point again, make a nice body and use new lines for better structure. Or let's just say format a nice body. We save, we test this once again, but this time write him a poem. I love his course. And now everything is done. I want to come back into my emails. Appreciation for your course. Let's just open this up. Dear Arnold, and so on, everything seems fine. Yeah, the body is still not so fine. One last time I want to fix this a little bit better. At least we have no attribution. Also this ARN is not perfect. So let's just refine the system prompt. This is an iterating process. I hope you understand this. So we come back to the system prompt and let's just make something better here. Yes, I think this should be better right now. And the last thing for better structure is, let's just test these right here. Instead of HTML, let's just use text. Sometimes it works better if we use text. So let's just test this once again. So send a mail with a poem, I love his course, and so on. We send this out. Everything gets triggered. The chat model is triggered. The AI agent is triggered. Send mail tool gets triggered. Boom, the mail is sent. I have everything in my mails here. And there we have it. It is perfect right now. Dear Arnold Oberleiter Hofer, I hope this email finds you well. In the realm of learning, where knowledge blooms and glows, your course stands as beacon as everyone knows. With wisdom, your share and so on, like come on, you can read this yourself, but it worked completely perfect. So this is the easiest AI agent that you can use. We use a chat trigger node. We use an AI agent. We need to refine the prompt a little bit so that we have a little bit better output. Then we use the OpenAI chat model, a Windows buffer memory, and the Gmail send tool. On the Gmail send tool, we use text for better format. And because this thing has also the buffer memory, we can also tell something like this. Send him. So we simply tell him so that we know that we simply want him again. Other mail that I also like his dog. And if I send this out, the Windows buffer memory will simply look at what mail we mean, and then we have here Arnold's dog. So the context is perfect. If we come back to our mails, the mail is here. Dear Arnold, I hope this message finds you well, and so on. Truly admire your dog. Warm best regards, Arnie. So this mail agent works perfectly fine, and I think you should simply copy this mail agent because it is the easiest mail agent that you can make. Of course, you can also make drafts with this exact same mail agent. You can delete mails, you can summarize mails and do a lot more, and in the next video I want to show you the next cool workflow. In this video I want to show a cool automation. Let's just assume that you get a lot of mails, but you just want to read a summary. Let's just assume that you get like 5 or 10 mails every single night, and you want to summarize these 5 or 10 mails every morning so that you can decide if these mails are important or not. You can simply read the summary, and with this automation you can save a lot of time. And we do not have to create this ourselves, because if we press here on templates, you already find this email automation. This is really practical. Everything that you have to do is to type in these following words. Email, summary, agent. We send this out and we find these two automations here. And the first automation is the right one. You can simply press on this automation. This workflow is completely for free. And here you already see what this workflow is doing. You can simply press on use workflow, and then you can copy this workflow either to your cloud instance or to your local host. I just want to copy these to my local host. You can also simply copy the template to clipboard as a JSON, but the easiest and fastest way is to simply press on these. And then you will find something like these. You need to connect your credentials. So you can connect your Gmail credentials by simply pressing on it and simply use the email account where Gmail is connected. In this account, this is connected for me. And we also need to connect our OpenAI API credentials. So we press on these and then we press on continue. And then basically everything is set up. And now I want to show you how this works. You can also play with this workflow a little bit. We have also a lot of really detailed and nailed down descriptions. So this is a perfect workflow that is easy to use, easy to set up, and also easy to change if you need. On the first note you see, starts the workflow every day at 7 AM. Adjust the time if you want the workflow to run at a different hour. So if you press on these, you can simply make this however you want. Let's just assume that you want to trigger this workflow like just one time per week on every Sunday at 7 AM. Or let's just say you want to do this every day 1 times a day, but not on 7 a.m. Let's just use 1 a.m. or midnight, or maybe you just want to have your summaries before you go to bed at 10 p.m. You can simply play with all of these. One of the most important things on this note is the following. So this note is triggered right now at this minute every day at 7 a.m. But the most important thing is that you press on these 3 dots, that you go onto your settings, and that you need to use your time zone. So you see, this is my local instance, and the local instance has by default the American or New York time zone. So this would not work for me. I would get my email summary at 7 a.m. but New York time zone. And I do want to have, of course, my time zone. So please go on settings. Please use the time zone where you are living in. Let's just say Berlin. If I press here on Berlin and press save, this thing will now work at 7 a.m. at my time zone and not at the New York time zone. This is one of the biggest failures that I see people all the time. They tell me, hey, this is not working, why I do get my summaries like a day later or something like this. Please make sure to use the right time zone. If you work in a cloud account, normally this will be set up automatically. But if you do this on your local host, this is the most important thing here for this workflow. If you do not do this, the time zone will simply not be correct. Now let's just take a look at the second note. Fetches all emails received in the past 24 hours from the email address. So you can simply press on this note, and here you can see that our Google account is connected because we have done this at the start. The resource is of course message. Then the operation is get many, because you want to insert a lot of data, all the emails that you got in the last 24 hours. You could also change this like to add labels or to delete mails, but I don't think that you want to delete automatically like all the mails that you get 24/7. So let's just leave it as get many for this workflow. Then the return all is of course on. If you don't want to have all, you can also give a limit. So let's just say you do not want to have more than 10 mails or a summary of 10 mails. You can play with these a little bit. It can be simplified, but it don't has to be simplified. I like to have it simplified. Then you have the search. So here you have this code. Just leave this code as it is. You can also always ask ChatGPT for more clarification on this code. Simply copy it, throw it into ChatGPT. If you go an expression and make it big, you can see this code. It's basically relatively easy, structured everything. So you simply want to have the data from yesterday and so on. And that's basically this note. You want to have the mails of your past 24 hours, and you can simply have some limits if you want, or simply let everything included. I just go with a limit because I got a lot of mails. I do not want to have everything here. Then the next note is organizes the fetched emails data, extracting fields like sender, receiver, CC in the previous snippet. So you can press on it. You see all item data. The put-output field is of course data. Include specific fields. The fields to include is ID, from, to, CC and a snippet. And that's basically it. And then we have this OpenAI node, so you can press also on this thing right here. We have connected our OpenAI credential. The resources is the text that comes through. Then the operation is message a model because we want to have a summary. Then we can choose, for example, a model. GPT-4 Mini is a model that is really cheap, and that's also reliable and good enough for a simple summarization of these. Then you have the message as text. You can go on expression and make this big and see for yourself how everything is structured. Go through this email summary and identify all key details mentioned, any specific issues to look at, and action items. Use this format to output. Summary of emails, point 1, 2, and 3. Then the actions, so the name and what action you have to take, and so it goes on. And the input data is of course the JSON string that comes through from here. So this is also like relatively easy structured. Then you have the role as user, of course, a simplified output, and the output content is JSON here. And then the last note is simply this: send the summarized email report to recipient with a styled HTML layout. Update the send to and CC list fields on the email address of your recipients. If you press on these, you see that once again our email account is connected, the resource is message, the operation is sent because we want to send this email to ourselves. Here you can type in, for example, the email address that you want to use. Let's just use this one right here. I just want to have my summary to this email address. Then the subjects, you see here is the code basically from previously, and also with the time zone. Make sure to use your right time zone. The email type is HTML. You can also try this with text if you want, but here you have to change the expression also here to text. It should not be HTML, but here you have the structured HTML format, so I just would leave this as it is. Then you can scroll down. Appended n8n attribution is of course turned off. You do not want to have that this email is always sent by n8n automatically, but if you want to include it, just include it. And then the CC list at example.com, and reply to sender only, we leave this at off. So basically this thing should work right now. And what I want to do right now is to simply press test workflow. Now this thing got stopped now, of course, because in the last 24 hours they start to count from now on. So that's basically why this workflow stops right here if I press on test workflow. If you want to see if this workflow comes through, you can press on these. You can see that you can either send mock data, or you can also just come back here into this node. Then you go on settings and you press always output the data. And now we can press, or we can test all of this workflow at once. We will not have a complete summary of the emails from the last 24 hours because this started to count from now on. And in the last like 2 minutes, I think no mail comes through. And if I press test workflow, you see right now everything comes through. And if I press on this last node, you can also see that a mail got sent into my inbox. So let's just check this out. If I come here to my mails, you see that I have this mail. It comes of course from me. And if I open this up, you see the email summary, the summary of emails and the actions. Right now this is of course completely empty, but this is only empty because like in the last 2 minutes no email comes through. If you want to have this active, everything that you have to do is of course to press this from inactive to active, and then you will get a summary of the emails that comes through every single day at 7 AM from the last 24 hours. So I will get an email right now, tomorrow at 7 AM at my time, from the emails that come through from now until tomorrow. And that's basically the workflow. You can play with this a little bit, have fun testing this out. It's really easy, you can simply copy it. In this video we will create a complete email automation tool. If an email comes through, we will first filter the email, and if the email can be answered by our AI tool will answer automatically. I make a generic example, but you can use this example for whatever you want. I have a YouTube channel, and in this YouTube channel I get some sponsor deals from time to time. Normally, like I say no, because I do not want to sell stuff to my audience that I personally do not use, but sometimes it can make sense. Until now I only accepted one single deal, and I got the deals all the time, so nearly every day I get a question for a sponsorship videos. And mostly I say no, and that's why I want to build out this automation. If I get sponsorship deals, I want to reply to the sponsorship deals completely automatically. And if my mails are not specific about sponsorships, I do not want to reply to these mails. So let's just start by press create workflow. We press plus, and the first thing that we need is of course as always Google, or specifically the Gmail tool. I simply press on Gmail, and I want to have on message received of course. So every time as soon as a new email comes here, this thing should get activated, should get triggered, and then we need to classify our email. We need to connect our Google account. Hopefully you know until now how to do this. And if not, watch one of the previous videos. Then the mode is every single minute, so this thing should work all day long for us. The event is of course on message received, and it should be simplified. So this is basically everything completely automatical. What I want to do right now is to press fetch test event. And right now my fetch test event comes through. So you see, this is the ID, the thread ID, then here the snippet. Hey AI, me or Arnie, so there's also a typo in this mail. I would like to offer a sponsorship deal and so on, and I just want to show you what this mail is all about. So here onto my Google account, this mail comes through right now at this minute because I have sent this mail to myself, so that I do not have any problems with mails that I show from sponsorship deals. So I simply sent this mail to myself with typos. This is just a generic example. Hey AI with Arnie, I just want to offer a sponsorship for your next YouTube video. Our product is perfect for you. We have an AI tool that can generate pictures. I offer €600 for a 60-second integration. Peter from Beat AI. That's basically this test event that I have fetched, and I want to work with this fetch test event right now, because we need to classify all of these. We only want to have emails that are from sponsorships in this automation. So you see this works. By the way, we could also do this not simplified and press fetch test event once again. And now you see we have all the details from this email as JSON, but also as schema, and maybe we need all of this information for further classification. So the next thing that we want to do is to press plus, because now we need our next node. Next node is our set node, so edit field set node, and here we can work with this data. The mode is manual mapping, and we can press on these right now. We give this a name. Let's just say email context. This is of course a string, and here on the value we can press on expressions and we can make this big, and as soon as this is big we can simply map all of it manually. So let's just type in from, we can scroll down here, and also here you see from, it is from my other email account, and we can simply throw in this variable right here. Then we can take a new line. Then we type in subject, and we also find the subject here. Sponsor deal is the subject from this mail, and we take a new line. And lastly, we want to have the email body, and we find the body of course also here. We have this content type, and we can use HTML or we can also use text. I think with text we save some tokens, so we simply use the text as our email body. And here you see everything. So the result is from, here this variable, this object is this variable, and then the email body is this right here. So we have everything included. So our set node is like set. Let's just press test step so that we get some data through this thing. So we have the email context, and there we have all. Now we go back. Let's just give this thing a name for a brief moment. Let's just call it sponsor reply, and we press save. As soon as we have our set field, of course, we need to press plus and we need to go on with our automation. We want to have advanced AI and we need the AI agent. Let's just close this down, because first we always need the chat model. I like once again our OpenAI chat model. For this simple thing here, I think GPT-4 Omni Mini is perfect. And of course we have connected our credentials. So this thing is now set. Now we go on the AI agent. We use the tool agent. We need another user message, so we simply press on these and press on define below. We need the text, and it's of course the email context from the edit fields, so we can simply throw this in here. And now let's just make this actually big, so that we have a little bit more room here. I just want to make new lines, and I insert this system prompt. So role. Your task is to determine whether an email is related to a sponsorship deal or not. Respond with JSON object containing the following fields. Is sponsorship can be either true or false. Reasoning, explain your answer. Think step by step about your response. We do not really need this, but I like to include it. So let's just leave it as it is. And we have of course here the JSON with the email context. So basically the AI will know that it needs to look in this specific information. So that's basically it. By the way, you can also do this differently if you want. You can simply use here the context trigger node and this as input, and later use the system prompt to define this. But I think this saves us some token. This will make it more efficient. We need to toggle this thing on, require specific output format. If you toggle this on, you see that we can use an output parser later. We want to have JSON as the output, as we specify here in the prompt. If you close this down, you see that we have right now an output parser. The output parser is included here. If you toggle this off, once again, this output parser is no longer there. So simply toggle this thing on, and now we need an output parser. We simply press plus, and we need our structured output parser. So we press on these. And here you also see an example, but what I like to do is to press on define below, and now we can specify these, but this is really easy. It's really not that complicated. Under properties we do not have state, but we have is sponsorship, as we specified in the prompt. So you see, if we go on the prompt here, make it big, we have is sponsorship is either true or false. So you can also just copy these, is sponsorship. We come back to the output parser. It's not state, it's is sponsorship. The type is here not really a string. it's Boolean. Then the next thing, here we have the cities, but this is not true. We can come back into the prompt. We have reasoning. We can copy these, come back to the parser, insert here reasoning, and reasoning is of course a string. We do not have any items, so we can also delete this stuff here. So it's important that we delete also this last curly bracket and also this curly bracket with this thing also here with the items. And this thing will work as soon as we also delete this here. So we can simply delete it, also this. And now our syntax is correct. By the way, if you ever have problems with this code, simply copy this code, throw it into ChatGPT and say to ChatGPT that you need to specify this code in order to match your system prompt here. It's really that easy. Also ChatGPT can do this for you, and you can also just copy the stuff that I did in this video. So right now this thing is done. Let's just save it. We press on this AI agent node. And what I want to do is right now to press test step. We should, in theory at least, get the value true out of this. So test step. So we have the output is sponsorship is true, and the reasoning, the email explicitly mentioned an offer for a sponsorship related to a YouTube video, inducting a financial and so on. So you see, this is of course a YouTube sponsorship, so it's true. And the reasoning behind it is because, like the AI tells us, we get offered some money for a YouTube integration. It's really that easy. So our classification tool works perfectly. Let's just make this a little bit less messy. There we go. What I want to do right now is, I want to test if we also get a false response if I get like another email here. In order to test this out, I simply go into another email account and I do something like this. I write myself, I love you. Hey Arnie, wanted to tell you that I love you, Arnie. And we can send this out. My newest mail is right now, of course, that I love myself. And if I come back into this workflow and press test workflow, we should fetch my newest email. So everything should come through. Let's just see. Here on schema, we can scroll down. The mail subject is I love you. This right here is the text content. On our next node, we get our email context. On our next node, so the AI agent, we get our classification. So this is of course no sponsorship. And the reasoning is, this email is a personal message expressing affection with no mention of sponsoring or a business arrangement. So this works. And right now we need to go on, of course. So what we want to do right now is, of course, the sponsorship deals, we need to classify them, we need to map them, and on the sponsorship deals we want to answer immediately. If something is not a sponsorship, we do not want to answer it. So what we do right now is we use the if node, so we press on the if node. Let's just come to JSON, and right now you see value 1 equals to value 2, and you see here if sponsorship, we can simply throw this in value 1. Not really equals to, we have used previously Boolean, and if the Boolean is true, we want to do something. So right now we can press test step, and we have of course no data, because in this example is sponsorship is false. So we can go back here, and you see here we have the true path and the false path. Right now the false path is of course triggered. Let's just do this again, test workflow. We go through this, and right now we are on the false path, and now I want to show you what happens if we get something that is true. Hey Arnie, wanted to sponsor a video. I sent this to my other email account, then we come back to n8n and press test workflow. Everything comes through. Our edit node uses the email context. Our AI decides that is sponsorship is true. And the if node is decided that is sponsorship is true. So it is right now, of course, in the true path. And now we can use the true and the false path in order to work with our data. So if the output is false, if we do not get any sponsor deals, we do not want to have any action. So we simply press no or search for no. And you find this right here, no operation, do nothing, and we want to include this. So if this is not a sponsorship deal, we will simply do nothing with this workflow. And if it's a sponsor deal, we can press plus and we go on. You could use the advanced AI with another AI agent, but you can also just search for OpenAI, and we can also use just message a model. This is fine. We need to connect our OpenAI credentials. The resources is text. The operation is message a model. The model, let's just use GPT-4o mini, because this is cheap and this works for us. So GPT-4o mini. Then down here we have the message, text and the role user. What I like to do is to use a system prompt here. And this system prompt, we want to make this via expression. We make it big. And now we can include a nice little system prompt. I use something like this. Role, you work for a YouTube channel called AI mit Arni. It's German AI with Arni in English. Your task is to respond to sponsorship inquiries by drafting a reply email. Task, carefully review the email context below and write a friendly and professional email. Return only the email body in HTML format. Do not include header, only the body. The email should include details about sponsorship costs and conditions. Here are the conditions, sponsorship terms of the YouTube channel AI mit Arni. And remember, this is always marked down here. Channel overview. Here is the channel name, AI mit Arni. The subscribers actually is 15,000 right now. The average views per video, 2,000 between 10,000. We can also bump this up, it's actually a bit higher. Content focus, artificial intelligence, sponsorship pricing, standalone video, 800 to 1,300 euros. Integrated sponsorship mentions for 60 seconds, it's 600 euros. Additional info, AI mit Arni only accepts sponsorships that make sense for its target audience. In general, the channel rejects anything that does not provide real value to viewers and does not promote products that the creator does not personally use. This is, at least in my mind, the most important stuff. I would never ever promote stuff on my YouTube channel that I do not personally use. So this is important, and if people really want to have a sponsorship, make sure that it makes sense. I got a sponsorship deal from Hostinger and from Think Diffusion. These are two things that I am using myself from time to time. This is something that I would consider, but all the bull, yeah, let's just leave it how it is. I don't name any of these companies. So our system prompt is right now set. Now I want to add another message. This time we use user as role, and here we have the text. We can go on expression and make it big. Everything that we need is the email context, so that the AI knows on what specific context it should answer. And we find the email context, of course, in the edit fields and the email context. So we throw this email context in here, and then we are basically done with this thing here. And by the way, once again, if you make this big, you always see here the email body. Hey, Arni wanted to sponsor a video, so this was just this stupid example from previous. You can also press on this step and see how the AI responds to this generic small message here that we got. Let's just press on table. Here we see it, so everything is included, how I am priced and so on. So you can see this should absolutely work. And what we want to have is, of course, that this thing does the answer automatically. So we press plus once again. We search, let's just say, our Gmail tool. We need reply to a message. We have our credentials. The resource is message. The operation is reply. Now we need the message ID, the email type, and the message, of course. So we press on schema. And if we scroll down, we find under the Gmail trigger the ID. So we throw the ID in here. That's it. And email type is correct. The message is right now, of course, the content, so we can scroll up. You see it right here. The content is this thing, and this format is, of course, HTML. So we leave this at HTML and throw the content in here. We can also press this step and see if this mail got sent or not. The mail got sent. And if I come back into my other email account, I get my answer here. And the answer to my mail is, of course, so hey, Arni wanted to sponsor a video. This was the email that I sent it to myself. And I am telling to myself back again, hey Arnold, thank you for reaching out about sponsoring a video on AI mit Arni. I'm excited to hear that you're interested in working together. Before we process, I would like to provide you some details and so on. Here's the pricing. We're committed to maintaining the integrity of our channel, which focuses on artificial intelligence, and we only partner with sponsors whose product align with the audience's interests. We aim to feature only tools that provide real value and that I personally endorse. If you could share a bit more information about your product and how you envision the sponsorship, that would be great. Looking forward to hearing from you soon. So we have a perfect reply, a professional reply. I think this automation is great. And by the way, if this thing is too tricky for you, if you do not want to rely on AI too much, you can press on these. Here on resources, you can also change this. If you do not want to have this as message, you can also save it as a draft. So you can simply save it as a draft if you do not want that the AI sends these emails automatically for you. So you have saved them into a draft, and then you can look for yourself and simply press send if you think it makes sense. And if you think it does not make sense, you simply can rewrite it yourself. But for the sake of this tutorial, this is a perfect automation, at least for me. So we press save, and I think this is fine. But remember, if you do not want that this tool can send the emails for you, just simply leave them as a draft, so you can simply send or press the send button yourself. What I want to do is right now to send this to active, so that this thing listens to my email inbox every single minute. And right now we want to see if these things process the stuff correctly, if things come through. So I simply come back to this email account and I write myself an email. This time I simply start with the subject line of "Hey Arnie, I love your course," and I simply send this out. So I press send. As soon as this thing gets sent, I need to wait until I get my mail, and then we need to wait at maximum for 1 minute, because every single minute this thing will work for us, and then we will find on executions if this data comes through or not. So I come on executions and we wait until my thing comes through. And here you see that this thing gets executed, and it looks like that everything has worked. The Gmail trigger gets triggered, the edit fields get triggered, our AI agent gets triggered, and the if node decided that this is of course no sponsorship. So this completely works, so nothing happened here. In the editor you will not see this. And right now I want to make a similar example, but this time with a sponsorship, so that we see that the execution will also work for our sponsorships. So we come back here, we press on write. I write myself an email, sponsor, "Hey Arnie, I wanted to sponsor a video. I sell green pencils for women over 60. Best, Mark." Let's just send this out. I got my email query here. We come back to n8n, we go on executions. And let's just see, this thing gets executed nearly immediately, so I can press on it. And here we see, let's just see, yes, it got triggered correctly. So you see, Gmail got triggered, edit fields got triggered, our AI agent gets triggered, the if node gets triggered, the if node decided that this is indeed a sponsorship, so our OpenAI model drafts an email and sends it immediately back. And if I come back to this email account, I get my answer, I can click on it, and you see, here this was the question, "Hey Arnie, I wanted to sponsor a video," and so on. And here we have the reply, "Hey Mark, thank you for reaching out," and so on, "Here are the prices." And of course we need to have more information. Congratulations, you have an AI automation working that makes sense. This AI automation can save you some time. At least it can save some time for me. You can also save these as drafts, and it was relatively easy to create. I want to show you once again what we did. We start with the Gmail trigger. We leave it on every minute. Message received, of course. We go on in the edit fields. We just simply want to have from, subject and the email body, so that we can get nice data. Then our AI agent tool, we need to have here a good system prompt, and we simply tell that this is the context, and here from this content we want to have if this is a sponsorship, is it true or false, and the reasoning behind it, and this is of course the context. As soon as we have this, we need to have the structured output parser, OpenAI chat model, then the if node, and the if node will decide if this is a sponsorship or not. So if it's true, it will get parsed in the true path, and the true path will simply use our OpenAI node to make a good answer back. And then it will send it automatically in our Gmail account. And you can also save this as draft if you do not trust this thing fully. And if it's not true, nothing will happen. So it's relatively easy to create, and you can of course make this specific for you, for your business, for other business applications. This thing can help. In this section we did some cool things. First of all, we created a RAG chatbot, a RAG application, and you learned how to do it. We make two different workflows. One workflow is to upsert our data into a vector database. As vector database we use Pinecone. We can simply connect these few API keys and then it will work. As trigger node we had of course our Google Drive account, so that it's really practical. You can simply upload new files into your Google Drive and these new files will get automatically splitted and embedded into your vector database from Pinecone. Then we started to create the other workflow that can access this data. We created an AI agent that has access to your Pinecone vector database. And so you can browse these files and you can make this application for whatever reason you want. And it's really practical because everything works automatic as soon as this is active. If you have this thing active, you can always upload stuff into your Google Drive and have the newest data always embedded. Make sure that you delete old stuff from time to time from your vector database and keep all of it up to date. Then we started to make some email automations. We started with an email automation that is a little bit bigger, where we combine the RAG technology with an email automation. We created one workflow in order to upsert our email addresses into a vector database, and the second workflow can access this vector database, see the email addresses that you have saved into this vector database, and then you can simply write an email to XYZ. Your email addresses will get found and you can send them automatically. And with the second workflow we really trigger the third workflow, and the third workflow is here just to send your emails. Because some people like to have it fast, I also gave you the fastest way for our email automation. A simple AI agent node with a chat trigger and then the send mail tool and you are ready to rock. Because I know that a lot of people do not like to read endless emails, we also took a closer look at email summarization. You can summarize all your emails that you get into 24 hours and you get an update every day at 7 AM with just the few bullet points that are important, and you can decide for yourself if you need to read every single mail that you got. And because I know that a lot of people also do not like to reply to emails, we also made a really cool automation that first of all filters through all our emails. As soon as we get a specific email, we can answer to this email completely automatically. In my example, it was of course a YouTube sponsorship, but you can make this however you want. You can also make a lot of such automations so that you can automate like nearly your entire inbox. Just be a little bit creative, you can really do a lot with these things. And if it's too risky for you to send these emails completely automatically, just save them as a draft and press the send button yourself, so that you do not have any risk that the AI makes some failures. So basically in this section you have learned a lot, and I want to tell you what learning is. Learning is same circumstances but different behavior. Maybe you did not know how you can build AI agents with the RAG technology and how you can connect Gmail. Right now you know it, and you have only learned if you use this application, so please just try to build out an automation that works for you, or try to think for something that you can eventually sell to another business. Only then you have learned. Or you can simply just copy my workflows because you can download them. And one quick note, I also want to tell you what good learners do. Of course, they learn together, because more people always know more than few people. And of course we can reach this by you sharing this course. This would really mean the world to me. Maybe it also means the world to the other person, and if the other person gets value out from this course, they will describe the value to you because you have told them. So we have a win-win-win situation. I reach more people, other people can learn, and your status will rise because you have told them. Thank you for that, and I see you of course in the next section. Because nobody watches a course until now and stops before the coolest sections. See you in the next one.